Listening is the backbone of everything in digital communications. If you're not listening, you really don't know what's happening around your brand. So in a crisis, it's very easy to figure out what to do if you have the right data, which will give you the right insights. You need to know what is being said, and that will give you the root cause of the problem. And sometimes you have to dig a bit, because what people are currently talking about now might have started 2 hours ago. So you need to dig back and see, where did this actually come from? Who started all this? So you do have to do a bit of digging to figure out where it started and address that first. Who's saying it? Sometimes you have someone saying something and they're not being heard, but then an influential voice picks it up, and then suddenly the trajectory of this crisis changes. So you need to know who the influencers in this crisis are, who's fueling it, who's propagating it, both positively and negatively. Some people are there just for the clout, and you need to understand that they're there for the clout. We've seen how Twitter formats have changed, long form, and people will write stories just for engagement. So also be aware of the motivations behind everything. We know people who are generally antagonistic against brands, and they're doing it for clout, not because they have a cause. You need to also map those people out and keep them in your radar. Why, and that goes to why they're saying it. The cause is it for their own gain? Are they actually advocating for something? Are they just joining a movement for the sake of joining a movement? Or are they actually involved in this and believing in it? When they said it matters. Is this something that was said 6 months ago and you ignored it and now has become a problem? Or is it something that was said 6 months ago and someone has decided to pick a bone with you? Maybe you had resolved it with the first customer. You also need to be able to decipher what they're trying. Their motivations are very important. And then, of course, you measure the volume. How many times has it been said? So if 5 people are complaining about a product or a service, you know there's a problem. If 100 people are complaining about it, that is a full-blown crisis, because why would 100 customers be complaining at the same time? Or why, in a period of time, have the complaints increased? There must be a problem around this. So always think about all these things. What are people saying? Who's saying it? Why are they saying it? Think through it, and then always look at the intent. People do have intentions behind everything they do. Whether it's something about them, something about you, something about a third party, there's an intent, and you must try to figure out that, which will help you figure out your solution. Models that you can use. I found this very interesting, short way of dealing with crisis. This is from the UK government. They published it recently. And there's many models to deal with crisis. But it's just about strategy, tactics, organization, and people. With strategy, if you're in a crisis, map what success looks like. What do you want the outcome to be? And who are you looking to influence? But more importantly, what are the core principles that you will abide by in managing this crisis? Like I said, fear. Don't use underhanded tactics. That might be a core principle. In tactics, how will you deliver your message? Think about the platforms and the actions you will take to then mitigate that crisis. So in this point, you look at your holding messages and statements, you look at the contact lists of your influencers and people who are involved in this, you look for the sign-offs and approvals from everybody within the organization, and you look at the channels to use, and more importantly, the templates. So if it's video, written, audio, whatever it is. In terms of organization, look at the quality of communication within the team to external parties. So you're looking at your escalation matrices, the roles and responsibilities within your team. As an organization, you must always have a crisis preparedness team. You must. So don't wait for crisis to happen to you. Have a team that you know, if there's a crisis, will get involved. Have their substitutes also in case these people are not available. You can even go as far as mapping out, if it was a disaster, where would you relocate these people to work on the crisis, because the disaster has happened here. Look at what tools do they need in terms of crisis. Do they have phone lines that will work? If you're on one network, do they have the alternative network as on their phones? So you must really think way ahead and plan these scenarios out. Look at your policy and organizational structures. Where are the bottlenecks when it comes to crisis? And some things you will only learn when a crisis happens for you to map them out. Learn the lessons you must at that point. And then also look at business continuity. What will it take to get us up and running as soon as possible? And have that plan ahead of time. When it comes to people, Think about the number of people in your team, one who will be affected, and map out the scenarios. If it's the whole organization that is being shut down, so how will you move people from point A to B to get them maybe to safety? Or if you're sending people home, can they work from home? COVID was a good lesson for us. Figuring out how people can work and still keep the business running, but remotely. That was a very good crisis for the entire world. But it really helps organizations think differently. I don't have to sit in the office to get work done. Think about the people who will be affected who are not within your team. So map out your customers and think about how they would be affected. Think about the skills and training that you need to impart to the team to deal with the crisis. Sometimes they have to go through training, crisis simulations, and all sort of things. Have them trained for that. And again, it's repeated training. You'll find that the crisis team is very calm when there's a crisis because they're actually going into that mode. They know this is what I need to do, this is where I need to be, and they just go into action. And then always think of the well-being of the team. They are dealing with a crisis, they will be affected. Where is the counseling? How are they doing physically? Have they gotten enough sleep? Think about just their physical and mental well-being as everything is unfolding, because you need them to stay awake and alert, and you need to keep them healthy, that after this crisis, they will not have lasting effects, especially when it comes to disaster and traumatic scenes. I'll whiz through the case studies because we're a bit short on time. Do you remember Absalom Bank? So someone's autocorrect did this. By the time they deleted it and retweeted, we had the screenshots because we're fast like that. But it's been a lasting name. We still call it Absalom Bank. It's a joke, but I know some brand leaders who still get offended when we say that. And sometimes it's funny to just annoy them a bit and call it Absalom Bank. So some things are not a crisis, but someone makes it such a big issue, some things just leave them alone. It won't affect your bottom line. It's just a joke. Sometimes you have can you read? Missed opportunities. If you look at this, so it's the same tweet with different responses. Both had customers responding on their behalf, but Stanchart took the opportunity to convert. KCB was just thankful. Biashara inajilete tu. And then you miss that. A misstep. I'm sure the ladies remember this always. And this went on and is still going on, but something very small escalated because of how they handled it. They put out a tone-deaf influencer campaign. We saw people wearing nice pajamas and, nightwear, going to Mount Kenya Safari Club, chilling out, and then talking about always. Was that the issue? We didn't need someone to sell the product to us. We've known this product since we were young. It's been in the market that long, and most of us have used the product. But we were complaining about the quality and the difference in market quality. Very clear difference across the markets. In the US and Europe, they adhere to standards, but in Africa, we're being given a shitty product. Very tone-deaf campaign that went into media when it should not have gone into media. What could they have done? Listened better? Don't respond to things randomly. Just think about what people are complaining. It's a product. Change the product. Just change the product. It already exists elsewhere. You just need to import it here. That's it. That's all we were asking for. Just change the standards that you hold for us. Whatever you hold in other markets, hold the same standards for us. Don't just engage influencers because they look nice and they produce good content. We really don't care about them at that point. This came into focus because we were handling this client at that point. And the client was like, what do we do? People are talking about taking this kid up for a modeling campaign. Was it necessary? No. So what people wanted was for Coca-Cola to sign up this child. But the bottom line of it is Coca-Cola does not market to children. Do they? In their values, they do not market to children. But their products are very cute. Fanta is very orangey and colorful. They use friendly characters. Santa. So they don't. No. Now they do. They have families in their ads, but they don't have individual children. So when they're marketing to families, they're not marketing to the child, they're marketing to the parent. So that's what held down the argument. We will not use children as models. But did they need to communicate that? They did not. So they said, we keep quiet, it will go away. And it went away. Overall, they got a nice photo of a child holding a bottle. The soda still sold itself. You have a potential disaster. This was at COVID, when everybody was so afraid of COVID. So KCB had to shut down a branch. But the fear around COVID was the bigger problem. Have people been affected in the bank? Have customers been affected? Because one person was found positive and had to be taken to hospital. So they had to close the branch, sanitize everything. And I mean, you've closed operations for one branch, and it's a major branch. So what do? They just had to say, this is what has happened and this is what we're doing. So they were quick to respond about it. So not let people speculate, because speculation is the worst thing in a crisis. If you're not putting out information, people will make stories for you. Focus on the well-being of the staff and the customers, and then put out accurate information, especially in times of disasters. KFC, we had potato crisis in Kenya. Actually, we had a global potato crisis, and KFC was affected. But what was the problem? KFC said Kenyan potatoes are not good enough, to the point that it became a government issue. What did KFC do? They realized they made a misstep in saying that Kenyan potatoes are not good enough. We are Kenyan and catch feelings. So they implemented a farmer program that gets them the standard of potatoes they have. And what are they doing now? They're talking about, these are current billboards. They're talking about it loudly, but also other brands hopped onto it, that our products are Kenyan. So turning a crisis into, although it took time, it's like 3 years, 4 years down the line, but you can still turn up a crisis into something else. Politics. Mr. Trump invited himself to McDonald's. No one invited him. But the franchises have autonomy to accept or not. It's not the corporate office that decides. So people are like, why is McDonald's endorsing this? And this was in the middle of an E. coli outbreak. So they're dealing with illness and people, and then politics on top of it. They put out a statement, and this is one brand that is apolitical. We are not red or blue, we are golden. This is who we are. Each franchise has the choice of who they support. It's not about the brand. And they put out that statement, and it killed off that Trump story immediately. So in fact, the story is changed to how McDonald's responded, instead of how Trump went to McDonald's. Trump, this guy, he even had T-shirts after that made. Like, he's that brazen. They just responded very clearly and very quickly. So they have their values. This is what they stand for. This is who we are. That's all they said. But they did it also at the speed of lightning. Lastly, this used to be called the dirty dozen. Things that brands would avoid. Don't get involved in conflicts, obscenity, arms, all these things. And still, they guide a lot of communication principles. Unless you're involved in this business, why are you fueling these conversations? Because someone will be offended at some point. Now, we have the new age issues that are coming up, social movements. You have to choose your stand. Or if you're going to remain apolitical, stay that way and stay true to your values. Data privacy is big. We're seeing where Safaricom is now. Fake news has been a constant problem since around 2015. You must have the tools to see where the fake news is coming from and who's propagating it. And then on top of that, with fake news, is AI content. People are creating so much, you can't tell what is real or not. So you must actually have the means to observe and watch what is happening around your brand and mitigate those issues. Now, lastly, I'll leave you with this. In crisis, there's this saying. So people used to think that it's two characters, Wei, Ji. So Wei means danger, but people used to think that the second character means opportunity. That was actually a bit of fake news, starting with Robert Kennedy in a paper he wrote. He thought that means opportunity, but the second character means a crucial point when something begins to change. That is what defines a crisis. You have a crucial point coming into contact with danger, and that forms your crisis. Stay prepared, stay ahead of the game. Most of the time, you will be able to manage your crisis. That's it. Thank you.